peasant blonde. Manny always calls me blonde, blondie. Well, anyone would look blonde in comparison to him. He's as dark as a North African and as crafty as Caliban. He's a bully too. He loves to make me squirm, and he's good at doing it, like now. I'm cleaning up some metals with him, and I've gone and broken the hammerhead. You peasant blonde, I'll use your head for a hammer now. It's thick and dense enough, guard you. But for all this, I can't help liking him. Liking him because he'll never make any pretense to be nice. He relishes the discomfort he affords me, especially in front of others and above all in front of the girls. But despite himself, he'll suddenly ruffle my hair, perhaps at a point where he's nearly reduced me to tears, and affectionately say, "Guard you, blonde." His wife, poor thing, looks the unhappiest woman in the encampment. Her face is always black and blue and her eyes swollen from crying. But he does pay me whenever I work on the metals with him, and from him I've learned a lot about this craft. I can see a bit of Vulcan in him, as he sweats and curses darkly over obstinate iron or aluminium which will not break or yield under his powerful blows. This blonde, this copper stuff, cupro we call it, is worth 1,000 times more than this common grey stuff. But it has to be clean blonde. That is, not one tiniest piece of inferior metal must be stuck to it. So clean it up well. And you may have noticed, yes, even you, blonde, that lead is heavier than aluminium. So you have to have a lot more aluminium than lead to make up the same weight. Manny does most of his work in a copse, some way from the encampment, to which he drags or carts his engines, refrigerators, boilers, his disused components, chassis, and electrical wiring. A fire smoulders on which he melts lead, burns the plastic off copper wiring, lights his cigarettes, and over which he roasts a chicken or a hedgehog from time to time. He thinks I'm stupid, and he never lets me forget it. Most of the time, though, I work for Tata. Going out with Zinga and Majini in the lorry, we drive around the villages calling in at the farms and asking for any old iron. Sometimes we strike it rich, and sometimes we come back empty-handed. Some of the ways we obtain what we're after entail a certain amount of cunning, of daring, and there are times when we have to scarper pretty damn quick. There are still a handful in the encampment who look upon me with suspicion. One old crone, for instance, is convinced I'm a spy and starts cussing and hissing every time she sets eyes on me. Tata's warned me to be on my guard with some of those about the compound, and to avoid going near certain fires. But now I've strayed over to one of those he warned me about. You see, I saw Magdala here, standing alone, and I like Magdala, and I know she likes me. And she smiled at me as I passed. But as I approached, she turned and disappeared into one of the surrounding campinas. And now, instead of her, I find myself in the company of two surly fellows, looking daggers at me. One of them steps over to me, stabs me in the stomach with his finger, and hisses, "I'm going to get you." The blood drains from me. The pit of my stomach jolts in a spasm of fear. "Well, why? What have I... I don't like your mug," he snarls. "Tomorrow morning, be here. We'll go out behind the wall." "All right, I'll be here," I say, trying to look as calm and mean as him. Inside, I'm shaking like a leaf. Christ, how on earth am I going to stand up to a gypsy? I'll not last a second, not stand a chance in hell. But I'm not going to back down. I'll be here. I'll be here. The night's interminable, tossing and turning. I dread the arrival of the morning. I'll be like a lamb to the slaughter. I know how gypsies fight. There are no Queensberry rules with them. A kick in the balls, a smack in the face, quick as a flash, and I'll be finished. I could tell Tata first thing in the morning, or Zinga and Majini. They'd help me out. But no, I've got myself into this. I must get myself out. I'm by the smouldering fire. It's the appointed hour. With trembling fingers, I take out a cigarette, put it to my lips. I'm about to light it when I see my aggressor and his accomplice approaching. I'm going to need all the puff I can get. I put the cigarette back in my pocket. Staring into the embers of the fire, neither looks at me. They may spring at me. I brace myself. Glaring at my opponent as fiercely as I can, he takes a cigarette from his pocket, lights it, takes a couple of puffs, tosses it into the fire. "Forget it," he growls, and turns away. My body, which he'd have mashed to pulp, has turned to jelly as I make my way through the encampment to Tata's fire. I have no more trouble in the camp at Po. I can wander freely anywhere. Unwittingly, that fellow set up something which worked very much in my favour. If it had come to combat, I'd have lost. But, as it's turned out, I've won. Won the respect of all the Romanies of Po. I'm soon to see that gypsy's skill and ferocity in fighting. It's the month of May. There's an open-air ball in a square in town. A score or more of us from the camp have come along. A rock and roll band's playing on the stage. A contingent of parachutists, hated paratroopers, are present. It's a hot night, balmy, intoxicating, blood-enfevering. The Romani Chavi are not pleased to see the shaven heads of the parachutists on the dance floor. No, they're not pleased at all. It'll only take a spark. In a flash, the square's a battleground. The gypsies who've drawn koshes and belts loaded with lead are trashing the military who've been taken by surprise. I realise to my horror that I'm going to have to step into the bloody fray and fight alongside my companions. Not to do so would be unthinkable. I fancy myself as a Romano prowl, do I not? Then I must fight like one. I'm about to take the plunge when a terrified paratrooper streaks past me, pursued by 5 gypsies. "Come on, help us get this geezer!" And I join them in hounding the solitary soldier who's bolting white-faced down an alley which leads out of the square. What luck! I can honourably flee the field. The quarry's put up against a wall, and one by one, turns taken to batter him senseless. Teeth crunch, blood spurts. "Your turn now," they turn to me, who am sixth in line to have a crack at him. "Oh, I think he's had enough, don't you? Nothing could have me beat this poor boy, because he's no more than a boy, although he's a parachutist and with shaven head and all that, but still a boy. I feel sick. He's crumpled up and whimpering. You're right, he's finished. Let's go." Back at the square, the fighting's over. The parachutists have fled, and the gypsies are gathered victorious on the field of battle. Back at the camp, it's reported that I fought valiantly at their side, like a Romano prowl. I awake one morning, the sun streaming through the window onto my face. I have an idea, a plot, to prove myself really as smart as a Rom, as smart as a gypsy, as a Romano prowl, to show I'm not just a clod-hopping gajo, that I can set up a little enterprise of my own and make money. What I'll do is this. I'll go into Po, buy a bucket, some ice, some concentrated lemon squash, and set up a little stall at the market. There are bound to be some shoppers and marketeers who will be glad to quench their thirst with my ice-cool product, which I'll sell at the inevitably, unbeatably low price of a franc. I leap out of bed and out to the fire to tell Tata my scheme. Impeccable plan. You're beginning to think like a manouche. But you better hurry. It's a long walk to Po. Lachi bok, he calls after me as I stride out of the compound. Good luck. With all haste, I take the road, its hedgerows bursting with mayflowers and the sky full of birdsong. The sun is climbing towards its zenith and beating down already hot upon my bonds. Crikes, the morning's getting on. I'd better hurry. Buying the equipment has taken longer than I anticipated, and now noon's striking as I arrive, hot and sweating, at the marketplace. I quickly assemble my stall on a couple of packing cases and start calling out, "Lemonade, lemonade, un franc le verre." But damn it, everyone's gone home. The whole place is deserted. My cry echoes around the square. I throw the lemonade out and trudge up the hill. Christ, they're going to think I'm a gajo now. I'll arrive back with absolutely nothing in my pockets. Arriving at the cathedral, which commands the heights of the city, I fling myself down on the grass and stare up at the glaring metallic sky. The days become sultry, torpid. Not a bird sings. I'm sticky, the grass is itching, and my heart is beating against my temples. I'm deflated, feel as wilted as the flowers around me. There's such a profusion of flowers around me. A bird starts singing, "Flowers! Flowers!" Leaping up, I start picking them. Flowers of all kinds and colours. Finding some string and silver paper in the nearby dustbins, I make little bouquets. Now I'm standing at a corner down in the town, calling out, "Flowers! Flowers! 1 franc the bouquet!" Returning to camp, my pockets full of jingling coins, Tata's as proud as a father whose son's just graduated. "Bravo, Mishto! Mishto, mon brave! Well done!" Oh boy, was he pleased with it. So now, whenever Tata doesn't need me to help with the metals, I go into Po to ply my new trade. I have to be careful not to raise suspicion by going too often to the gardens around the cathedral, and so I am constantly on the lookout for new places to filch flowers from. There's the park, of course, and the hedgerows on the way into town, from which I get most beautiful wild flowers. And then one day I pass a cemetery. There are bound to be flowers on the graves, and there certainly are, ready-made bouquets and all. But what's this? A grave's been dug up, and at the bottom of it is an old coffin made of solid lead, worth a small fortune. Looking to see that no one's about, I jump down into the hole. Crikes, there are human bones in the coffin. I'm somewhat superstitious, but no time for superstition. I tip out the bones, bend and compress the lead into a manageable lump, heave it up to the surface. It's heavy, this block. I'll have to rip it in half and make 2 journeys. Now, one lump hidden in the undergrowth, the other on my shoulder. I leap over the wall and make for the scrap metal merchant. 47 francs. And I go back for the second half. There'll be no need to sell flowers today. Ha! I can have a drink instead. Where'd you get that? Chavo's pulling out of the scrap merchant just as I'm arriving with his second lump on my shoulder. He looks surprised and not a little impressed to see me staggering out of the blue, panting beneath the weight of such a find.